welcome to story time. So last time we finished the adventures of Peter Cottontail, and today we are going to start a new book called Little Eddie. And I'll just read what it says on the back of the book. Meet Eddie Wilson, a small boy with some mighty big ideas. Whether Eddie's finding homes for a crowd of stray cats, preparing himself for a career in dog catching, or picketing the baseball team that says he's too little to play, his happy adventures are sure to win lots of friends. All right, so let's find out what kind of big ideas and what kind of adventures little Eddie goes on. The first chapter is called What Eddie Brought Home. What do you think he brought home? Any ideas? Little Eddie was the youngest of the 4 Wilson boys. There was Rudy, aged 12, the twins, Joe and Frank, who were 9, and Eddie. Eddie was 7. So that means he was just a little bit older than you guys. There were a number of boys and girls in the neighborhood with whom the older boys played, but there were none the same age as Eddie. So there were 4 boys in his family, and he was the youngest, and in the neighborhood there weren't any kids that were his age. The older boys were always telling him that he was too little to be in their gang, but this never discouraged Eddie. He just hung around and found ways to get in on nearly everything the older boys did. But sometimes he had to think fast and work hard to do it. Of all the girls in the neighborhood, he liked Betsy best. If the boys went off without him, he could go over to Betsy's. Betsy was always glad to see him. Usually they played checkers. Little Eddie was very fond of animals. You know what it means if you're very fond of something? It means you like it very much. He brought all of the stray animals home with him. Stray cats, stray dogs, birds that had fallen out of their nests, turtles, snails, garter snakes, anything that was alive, Eddie brought home with him. He was always getting fish heads from the fish market for the cats, saving bones for dogs, catching flies for turtles, and putting snails and garter snakes in boxes. His mother complained that every stray cat for miles around could smell the fish heads, and that they all made tracks for the Wilsons' back door, that every dog in the neighborhood knew Eddie's address, and that he was always good for a bone. His father said if Eddie brought home another turtle, he would make soup out of it. Oh no. But none of this discouraged Eddie. He didn't think that the complaining done by his mother and father meant anything. Eddie had another deep interest. It was in all kinds of signs. He simply loved signs, and every time he saw one, he would make one just like it. His bedroom was filled with signs. When you opened Eddie's door, you read, "Stop, look and listen," "Silence," "Men working," "Slow," "Danger," "Road under construction." Eddie also brought home junk of all kinds. Every waste paper basket was hidden treasure to Eddie. When the house cleaning season came around, Eddie could hardly stay in school. He was so afraid he would miss something that was being put out for the rubbish collection. That means like the trash. One corner of the workshop in the basement was supposed to be Eddie's private corner where he could keep his junk. Of course, Eddie didn't call it junk. He called it his valuable property. He had old radio parts, earphones, old tubes, and dials. Once he came home with an old phonograph horn almost as big as himself. When Eddie left the house, the family had no idea what he would bring back with him. All right, now, we don't really know what a phonograph is. We don't use phonographs today. This is a picture of the phonograph, but you could play music from it. You could hear music. His mother often said that nothing would surprise her. But the day came when she was more than surprised. It was the day Eddie brought home a telegraph pole. That's like a telephone pole, you know, those big poles outside by the road. One day, Eddie came home with an old filing case which he had found sitting on top of a trash barrel. Sorry, I was just thinking, so when he brought, here's a picture of the telegraph pole. Looks like the men are taking it down and he's watching. So one day, Eddie came home with an old filing case which he had found sitting on top of a trash barrel. His bedroom was his office from then on, and he decided he must have a desk. When his father remarked one evening that he was getting a new desk, Eddie piped up, "Can I have the old one, Papa?" "Nothing doing," said Rudy. "I'm the oldest. I'm the one that needs the desk." "No, no," cried the twins in one breath. "We get the desk, don't we, Daddy?" Frank added. "It was Grandfather's desk," said Joe. "And we were named after Grandfather," said Frank. "I ought to chop it up for firewood," said their father. "There isn't a stick of wood left, and I can't find any place to buy any. And it's only February. We'll need wood until April." "Oh, Daddy," cried Rudy, "you wouldn't burn up Grandfather's desk, would you?" "I didn't say I would," said his father. "I said I should." "But you won't, will you, Pop?" said Eddie. "No, I won't," replied Father. "But I'll tell you what I will do. I'll get the desk to whichever one of you boys brings in the most wood." "Oh, Dad," said Rudy, "where are we going to get any wood?" "I don't know," said Father, "but I have tried, and I can't see any reason why you boys shouldn't try. Is it a bargain?" "Okay," said Rudy. "Okay," said the twins. "Okay," said Eddie. Several weeks passed, and the twins didn't give the wood a thought. They were too busy playing ice hockey to think of wood. And then one day, Eddie came home with the telegraph pole. It came about in this way. One afternoon when Eddie came home from school, he found the men from the telegraph company replacing the telegraph pole that stood at the corner of the street on which Eddie lived. Eddie was thrilled. He sat down on the curb on the opposite side of the street and watched every move that the men made. Once he called out, Would you like to have me help you?" The man nearest Eddie looked up. "No thanks," he said. "I think we'll be able to do it all by ourselves. You just stay where you are and rest yourself." Eddie watched the men handle the ropes, and he saw the new pole slide into place. Then he looked at the old pole lying in the street. "I certainly would like to have that pole," thought Eddie. "That pole is certainly super." He watched the men as they got ready to move the old pole. Suddenly, Eddie said, "If you don't want that pole, I would like to have it." The men looked at Eddie in surprise. "Now, what do you want with a telegraph pole?" the foreman asked. "Well, my father could use it," said Eddie. "We've been having a hard time to get wood for our fireplace." "I'm afraid your father will have to get his wood someplace else," said the foreman. "But my father said if I could get him some wood, he would give me my grandfather's desk," said Eddie. "He did?" said the foreman. Then he looked at the other men. "How about it, fellows? Does this kid get his grandpop's desk?" "Sure," said one of the men. "Here, Sonny, help yourself to grandpop's desk." "Oh, thanks," said Eddie. Then he added, "I live right up the street in that white house with the white fence. Could you help me carry it home?" The men laughed. "Help you carry it home, hey?" said one. "Well, fellas, shall we help the big boy carry the little telegraph pole home?" The 5 men picked up the telegraph pole, and Eddie put his arm around the center of it. Then they all marched up the street, through Eddie's front gate, and put the pole down in the front yard. "Now I suppose you want us to help you cut it up," said the foreman. "Oh, no, that's all right," said Eddie. "My father will cut it up." When Mrs. Wilson came home, she found Eddie sitting on the telegraph pole. "Look, Mother," he said, "I got the wood for Papa." Here's a picture of him waving to his mom. "Eddie, where did you get that?" exclaimed his mother. "The telegraph men gave it to me," replied Eddie. "Now I'll get Granddad's desk." "I guess you will," laughed Mrs. Wilson. When the other boys came home, they were surprised to see the telegraph pole. And when his father heard of how Eddie came home with the telegraph pole, his glasses fell off right into his bowl of soup. The day Grandfather's desk was placed in Eddie's room, Eddie put a sign on his door. It said, "Men working." The family, who were downstairs, could hear Eddie scrambling around his room like a squirrel in the attic. They knew what he was doing. He was arranging his office. Then, after a while, his mother noticed that everything was very quiet in Eddie's room. She went to his door and gently opened it. When she looked in, there was little Eddie, with his head on Grandfather's desk, sound asleep. Standing on the desk and showing above his head was a sign which said, "Help wanted." His mother called downstairs to his father. Father came upstairs. He picked up Eddie and laid him gently on his bed. His mother undressed him and tucked him under the covers. Through all of this, Eddie slept. As Mother was leaving the room, she saw another sign. She picked it up and hung it on the bedpost at the end of Eddie's bed. It said, "Do not disturb." All right, trying to decide if we should do another chapter. I think we'll stop for now. Maybe next time we'll do more. The next chapter is called Eddie and His Cats. So let's find out what happens with Eddie and his cats.